If you claim Native American identity, you need to explain these numbers. All of them. I'm not attacking you as a person. I'm asking you to explain the math. Because according to U.S. Census records, millions of people who looked like me were reclassified from Indian to Negro between 1850 and 1890, and no one wants to talk about it. Between 1850 and 1890, the Indian category systematically dropped while the Negro categories exploded. 1850 Census, Mulatto category, 406,000 people. Negro category, 3.2 million people. 1890 Census, Mulatto category, 1.1 million. Up 179%. Negro category, 7.5 million. Up 4.3 million. The Negro category gained 4.3 million people in just 40 years, while the Indian category systematically dropped. Where did those millions of people come from? They didn't appear out of thin air. They were reclassified from Indian to Negro and Mulatto. That's not conspiracy, that's census, gov math. Now, here's the part nobody wants to address. If Black Americans came from Africa and Native Americans are a separate population, then explain this. Native Americans today, around 1% of the population. Black Americans today, 13% of the population, second largest racial group. So you're telling me a people group imported under slavery became the second largest population at 13%, while the original inhabitants got genocided down to 1%? That genocide would require killing off 99% of the indigenous population, while the enslaved African imports outbred them by 13x. Name one genocide in human history where the native population dropped to 1%, while an imported enslaved population became 13%. There isn't one, because it's mathematically impossible. But if we are the reclassified indigenous people, then 13% as the second largest group makes perfect sense. 1683. William Penn writes a letter describing the Lenape natives of Delaware as black people who became slaves, separate from a few Africans. That's 73 years after 1619. He's literally calling indigenous people black. Not Africans, natives. Primary source document. Not my opinion. His words. Now, here's where the math destroys the "we came from Africa" narrative. The U.S. claims it imported 388,000 Africans total. Brazil claims it imported 5 million. That's 13 times more. But by 1860, the U.S. had 4.4 million people classified as Negro. That's 11.3x growth from the claimed imports. Brazil, even with 13x more imports, their growth was proportionally smaller. Under conditions of 60% infant mortality, family separation, malnutrition and disease, brutal enslavement. You're telling me 388,000 Africans outbred Brazil's 5 million imports under genocide conditions? That violates basic biology. Every documented slave society in history had negative population replacement. Roman Empire needed constant warfare to maintain slave numbers. Caribbean plantations. Death rate exceeded birth rate every year. Islamic slave trade. 250 years, never achieved natural growth. Not one slave society in 4,000 years of human history achieved self-sustaining population growth. But somehow America did? With 388,000 imports? The only population that grows at 2.6% annually under those conditions is a free indigenous population that was already here. So if you're claiming Native American identity today and calling me African with zero indigenous heritage, explain these numbers. How did enslaved Africans become 13% while indigenous people dropped to 1%? Name one genocide where that happened. Between 1850-1890. Negro category UP 4.3 million, while Indian category systematically dropped. Explain that. How did 388,000 imports become 41 million descendants under slavery? Why couldn't Brazil's 5 million achieve the same growth? Why did William Penn call Delaware natives black people in 1683? I'm not attacking you. I'm asking you to defend the math with math, not emotions. Because these aren't conspiracy theories. These are census records and demographic impossibilities.